This is a training session on the MediBalance Pro system. We are getting right into the topic. We start the pre-installed software by clicking on the corresponding icon for MediBalance Pro, which is the two figures in red and blue. The software automatically launches. So here we go. The platform is now being calibrated. Do not put any weight on the platform or move it until the process is complete. Whenever you do move the platform, make sure that you recalibrate it. The button for calibration is on the top. It says calibrate in the menu structure. So when I go OK, the red dot will move off center, indicating that it is calculating. And on the top, there was a quick number count going up to 100%. Once the calibration is finished, the red dot will be in the center of the screen. The software itself consists of 3 key modules, and those key modules are on the top. You have the recording module, the training module, and the analysis module. And you also have the client manager, which is essential to create new clients and take it from there. So we'll actually start with that module. The 4 buttons that you have on the right hand side are primarily meant for the quick analysis that you do for your clients. So we can actually walk through those 4 blue buttons from top to bottom. So when I start the software like I did and I want to do a quick analysis, I go on select clients. I have my list of clients. They are anonymized so that the new client cannot see who has been there before. If you click on one of those clients, the name will appear in full so that you know if you have the right client at hand. If not, you can always go and add a new client, which we'll do right now. There's a button for new, edit, delete, activate, deactivate, and we'll just select new. And then what I need to type in is training sample. So last name, first name, date of birth. It's essential to have the date of birth, at least the right year, preferably everything, so that you can see what your client, what data you need to compare your client with. Male, female is the next selection. You don't need to have the address detail in here. You just could. The height is important, and so is the weight. So I just typed in given numbers for whatever and go OK. And now my client is ready. And if you look on the top, you see sample training, which is the name I typed in for this client, on the top already. So the moment you create a new client, he becomes the active client. You don't need to press this button again. So now I can close this window and go ahead and say start recording. That's the easiest way to do it. This is already the right window. So I can also press on this start recording button in the window. And I can see what kind of a script I'm doing. I'm doing the standard script 4-step protocol. There are also 3 more protocols already included in here, and we are actually capable of creating additional scripts should you find that helpful in your respective market to have a different scenario for testing and analysis. So it's fairly easy to do that. You can have single measurements. So if you want to say I want to do a 5-minute test standing on one leg, then you could set that up in here, and you can define if the client does that with eyes open or closed. You can do that with or without the extra cushion we delivered that you put on top of the platform to destabilize the client. And you can actually turn the platform 90 degrees and indicate that was also something some of our clients requested. You can change the way things look. You can have no background. You can just have the cross, or you can have the cross lines. I prefer this. And you can also define if you want a line graph, which would be a red line, a density, which would be like a temperature type of colorful meter showing where did the client spend the most time during the analysis, or you can have no visual feedback, which for analysis often is something that you want, so that when the client gets to see the monitor, he doesn't see if he moves backward, forward, or has a lot of sway. So for standard analysis, if the client sees the monitor, you choose this. If the client does not see the monitor, but just the professional does, you choose line graph is my recommendation. We go back to script. Usually you can just leave everything as is. So this was extra information. You leave the sensitivity level, which is up here, to 24 average. You can change it for specific analysis to highly low sensitivity. So if you have somebody who weighs 200 kilogram, you want it less sensitive. Or if you have somebody and you want to do like hand training with it, you put the platform on the table and you place the hand on it. Now it's so sensitive that even the slightest movement in the room already shows on the platform, as you can see. Now the platform is next to me, and if I touch it, it immediately goes back and forth. So I don't have to have the body weight with it, but I can actually use it for hand therapy as well. We're going back to average, which is 24. And again, your standard routine is you select the client, done. You start the recording pressing the second button. Now it gives you the instructions which your MTA or which your instructor can just read out to the client, which is please step onto the platform after removing your shoes. Position your feet symmetrically on top of the footprints on the platform and ensure that the distance to the center line, which is the orange line on the platform, is identical for both feet. So they're standing on the platform symmetrically. The red dot should now be in or close to the center of the cross lines. If somebody puts a lot of weight on one leg, it will not be in the center, and that is okay. You just must make sure that the feet are positioned symmetrically. Stand in your typical posture and keep your balance. After a short countdown, the analysis will start. Press OK to start the recording. And I'll go OK. And there's a 5-second countdown to get all ready. And now there's a 30-second measurement, and I will actually give you a little bit of movement here so that you can see whenever I move forward, it will show that, and whenever I move backward, it will also show that. So this is more movement than you would normally see on the preliminary measurement with eyes open and no cushion underneath, a fully stable client. For that, I've given you a little bit too much movement, but that's okay. So typically there's little movement here. If your client was feeling dizzy, or if you had a coughing fit, you can just type in whatever information you find important about the session. And you, if you have that special frame set up where the client can hold on to, and if you did hold on, you make a check mark here. It will include that in the analysis. If somebody holds on and stabilizes himself with that, of course, there's less movement that we measure with the platform than somebody who stands freely without holding on to anything. So I will not make that check mark because I didn't hold on to anything, and I will just continue. And now the instructions for the client are up here, which is please continue to stand in the center of the platform so the client does not step off but stays just the way he stood before. After a short countdown, the next part of the analysis will commence. Close your eyes once the countdown starts. Press OK to start the recording. So client stands on the platform, closes the eyes, and if you have somebody who holds on with the eyes, who uses the eyes to hold on, you will see a lot of movement. I'm creating a lot of extra movement now so that we get a pathological finding, somebody who's not stable here. And so this client is missing the help of the eyes and hence rocking back and forth with it and creating more movement than there should be. So this is again 30 seconds, and now the client steps off the platform, and you make sure that you put the cushion on the platform and let your client step on the platform again. So please briefly step off the platform, says the instructions. The cushion that is now being placed on top of the platform intentionally destabilizes the floor for you. Please step back onto the platform, still without shoes, and position yourself in the center of the platform as you did before. The red control dot should once again be close to the center of the cross lines. After a short countdown, the next measurement step will start. Press OK for starting the recording. So again, if you had any comments, if the client held on, you use that. Otherwise, you just go continue and the client does a third measurement with eyes open. So we'll continue. And now you'll see eyes open helps me greatly. I stand so much more stable. I'm always slightly off center here, just for training purposes. And there's less movement because my eyes are now at my disposal and I can use them to hold on in the room with my eyes. So a lot of people use that for compensation and find it quite helpful to do that. And 30 seconds can actually be very long for some clients. So I'm drawing a little bit more here and now we're done. And now the fourth measurement, client stands on the platform with the cushion, eyes open for the moment, and you instruct him to say with the following: please continue to stand in the center of the platform. After a short countdown, the final measurement will commence. And now the important thing, please close your eyes once the countdown begins. So now we are not just taking away the underground, which is the somatosensorical system, the system of self-awareness in terms of posture and movement, but also the visual. So all that is left to work for you is your vestibular system, and we'll see how well that operates when the help of the eyes disappears. And for the sake of it, I will pretend to be very unstable and show you what that could possibly look like for your client. So I'll continue with the final measurement. Standing on the platform again. And now this client is so unstable. Okay, this is very pathological, but you will see people doing something like that. Yeah, so this is something where people are so unstable that they no longer have a very distinct movement pattern front left, but they actually have a lot of shocking movements like this one. So now that is done with, and this will be very pathological. I'm sure we'll see what the findings are. So I'll continue. It's done. The recording was completely successful. Click on show results. So I go OK, and my third button on the right hand side is show results. So I'll click on this and it will show me my findings. And you can see here that this client has a lot of red in the evaluation on the first sight, and we will take a closer look at the data right now. So on the left hand side you have the 4 measurements as graphs: eyes open, eyes closed, eyes open with cushion, eyes closed with cushion. And while eyes open still are in the orange, already too much movement for those. This one is tending to the right, to the red. The other 2 with eyes closed are fully in the red, which is something that you might see in some clients. And then we also see that the area that is being covered and the way the graph appears changes dramatically here. You also have a zoom factor on the bottom right of each of these graphs, and here it says zoom factor is 14, which means there's not much zoom going on. With very healthy patients, you might see 60, 80, even 120 as a zoom factor. So there's so little movement that we need to zoom in a lot to actually see the graph. We didn't have to do this here because the 4th graph is so pathological. Now, we have the 4 steps in the table file on the upper right hand corner, which is step 1, 2, 3, 4, the measurements we did. You see the sway, the velocity, and the area under the curve. Now this is a bit extreme the way I set it up here, but it gives you an idea of what is happening. The sway is in millimeter. How far did the client move in a specific direction, and a sway of 6 is not a whole lot, a sway of 17 is more, and a sway of 37 is a lot more. But this is not even the extreme finding. The extreme finding is the velocity. If you look at that, we had 14 and 15 with eyes open, and 40 and 140 centimeters per second, which is probably a very, very high score. We see 3-digit scores here in very pathological clients. That means that this client moved more than 1 meter on the platform back and forth within 1 second, which is a lot. And here the area under the curve is calculated. You see like the little red dot here, it's just 6 square centimeters. You may have clients with less than 1 square centimeter. Like if you have a healthy young man, it may be 1 instead of 6 here. And then this one shouldn't be different because eyes open, eyes closed should not have any impact. There usually is a minimal increase. Here it's 4 times the increase, so that's already not normal. And then you see with eyes open again, this client goes back to the initial score of 6-7 square centimeters. So it seems to be the eyes here for this client. And in the fourth measurement, with the eyes gone and the underground destabilized, he's doing 335 square centimeters, which is a very, very high value. Usually 3 digits already here is very high. For the most part, you'll see something like 1, 2, 5, 50 if somebody is already pathological. 50, 60, 70, 80. So it's like a huge step. Perfect standing in the first 3, and then a really high difference, like 10 times the original value in the final measurement. So it doesn't have to be above 100, but if it is above 100, that's an indication for very unusual. And then we need to see why is this. So that's the table file. We have the sway radius, which we already looked at. How much sway is there? And you see in the fourth measurement, we give people a lot more room from the normative database, but we're not giving them 20 centimeters, and this client is already way, way beyond where he should be, 37 millimeters, which is much above the 20, which is the out of scale, the end of the scale. We have a risk of tumbling, which is an algorithm with multiple factors. You may see a risk of tumbling in healthy clients also. If somebody stands perfectly still, the system can't really discriminate somebody who freezes and like tenses all the muscles, preventing movement that way, and somebody who can just stand perfectly still. So if somebody has like very low sway radius, everything's in the green, but the risk of tumbling goes up, that usually is an indication for somebody who is too good for the system. But for the most part, it's pretty good indicator. And the bottom bar graphs, the Romburg ratio here is a standardized test which indicates the area under the curve with eyes closed divided by the area under the curve with eyes open. So here it's 23.91 square centimeters divided by 6.34 square centimeters, which is close to 4, and that leads to a red indication. And the other one is actually 43, which is very, very high. The scale goes from 0 to 10, and anything up to 6 is very normal. 6, 7 is very normal, and then it becomes unusual to look into further. This is the basic analysis that we do here, and then you can use the last button, which is the print results button. You can also do that on the top left. We also have a print option here, but we just go print it, and then it will actually prepare that for you as a preview. And then you see, okay, this is the first page of what the client gets to see, and this is the second page of the report for the client. So everything we just walked through is included in here. Then you just go print and you're good. I'll close that. This is the standard analysis that you can do, the standard recording module including analysis, and based on the findings you then suggest a specific training to the clients. That would be the training module. And you can also delve into this further by going deeper into the analysis module.
Now a quick note about licensing. I've opened the license management in the software, and I also started our license generator, which is obviously only available here at Meditech. And in that, we can define what kind of licenses are to be provided to a client. When you use the license management, you receive a code that you send to Meditech after installation. And based on that, you will get your license key from us, which is on the bottom here. And that key needs to be put in the license key entry field at the bottom of the license management right here. So that's basically what you do in order to get licenses. There's a full version, there are add-ons with more training functionalities, and there's also a network license that you can obtain at cost. The license can be limited to 30, 60, 90 days, or it could be unlimited. Both is possible. And so you basically check the options that you've purchased previously in your license management, and then you send an automated email with your installation key sent to Meditech in the left window, and then you receive the license key through our license generator, and you copy paste that into the license key entry field at the bottom of the license management window. Afterwards, you click OK, and you're done with your registration and installation of your software.
And now you go to the analysis module. You can select your client there. And then below your client, you have measurement script. If you double tap on it, it will automatically, if you double tap on the respective script, it will automatically open on your screen, if I'm not mistaken. It should anyways. Yeah, here we go. So, and now you should have the zoom and the print available. So let's close this window again and go back to the analysis module, which you have here, which is basically a database showing what clients did do what kind of testing. And so you double tap, or you can go on the plus of your respective measurement. And now we want to look just as at the fourth measurement, which is eyes closed with the cushion. So I double tap on this and I see my initial recording, and I have a lot of additional data here on the side, which gives me more information on what weight did I put in for my client, how was the weight distribution. And you see this one was very shifted to the right, so there was more weight on the right hand side than on the left. So this client in this demo was not in balance. And you also see what is the maximum sway horizontally, vertically. All of this information is available here on the side. You also have a lot more display functionality, like a symmetry analysis. And here you have a graph like this one, which should be available to you in the full license. And you can take out either the left-right or the front-back analysis. So let me take out the front-back analysis, and now I can see that the client has a tendency to shift to the right. You can see that because the dotted line in blue is shifting towards the right here. And you can take a look at the horizontal one in comparison, which is the front-back one. And you can see that slightly, ever so much, this client leans backwards, which is also unusual because usually people prefer to fall on their nose rather than on the back of their head. They're more in control that way. And so this is also an unusual finding. And you see a few spikes here where there was a lot of shifting in that client, which is also quite unusual. It shows in this moment the client was not in control of his posture. You have a lot more options to show stuff here. I'll take the actual recording out of here so that we can see things better. You can always decide what do you want to see here, what do you not want to see. You have a density analysis, and that one shows you that this was a client that just pretended to have a problem because everything is still very centered here with me, as you can see. I've moved front, back, left, right, but in the overall scheme of the measurement, there is no real shift, but I'm always staying in the center. So you can see it's actually quite symmetrically the way I did it, because you can only do so much pretense here. Then you have a sway analysis, which gives you an indication for the center of mass, which is the red dot here. Let me take out a few more of those that you can see things better. So here you see the red dot is actually almost in the center, another indication for somebody just pretending to have a problem. And you can see that everything here is actually focused around this point. So all my movements that I did artificially lead back to the center. With pathological clients, it would look differently. You also have a sway progression, which also shows you the difference from movement point to movement point, and the way the blue line and the red line, and one shows the sway radius and one shows the sway difference. So this shows you how much difference from point to point there was in movement. And you see with me there's 3, 4, 5 marks where I shifted a lot. And usually in clients that freeze, that stand perfectly still in the beginning, the curve would start to move up at the end, because you can only do this for so long, like 10, 15, 20 seconds, but it's very hard to maintain this state of freezing and not moving at all for more than 20 seconds. So usually you will see an upgoing orange curve at the end of your measurement. And if I want to include just the sway radius, here you can see what's the average radius and how much difference, how much deviation some of these spots have in comparison. So you can put all of this together in a graph here. So if I decide I want it all, then I put all of this up, just select it all, maybe even including my notes. Well, I'll take the notes out because there's nothing in here for this one. And then I can go ahead and say I want this printed. And then it could create a PDF file for me here. And I could just put that on file, put this in my record, or I can do a preview here to show it better to you what the client actually gets to see, which is the numbers, the graphs. So everything that I have on here, I get as a full report for the client. That's what the system can do in terms of reporting. I can adjust the way it appears and have a pretty good analytical functionality for the system in that scope. Any questions regarding the analysis module, which you can, by the way, not just use for the measurements, but if you did a training with a client, let's see if I have any exercises with a client recorded. Yeah, right here. So this is exercises, and you see all the different exercises in here. You can actually take a look what you find about those and how the client performed in terms of the exercises, and if there's anything specific about that. So this is what you get to see likewise in here. So you can always, anything you do with the system is being recorded. And you can see for this client, for example, for the skiing, he primarily went to the front right. Now this probably was a short recording, yes. And so I can always get an indication how well my client performed for this or that task. And for example, this is catch the ball. So normally there should be a left, right, and no front back movement. And this is exactly what we see here for this analysis of a conducted training. Okay, training, which is actually the coolest module that we have. It now offers you a full scope of 14 functions. The 17th is an optional one. It's an upselling where we actually have 3D games like Zucor Air, which we can connect to our systems. And then you are actually a human joystick on the platform. That's the only one you do not have available with your license. Everything else is available. Now, every function has an explanation. So sectors static is described here. Basically, you're standing on the platform, you're represented by a small red dot, which will appear in a second, and then you shift towards specific sectors on your platform, and you always have different difficulty levels, easy, intermediate, difficult. You can choose if you want sound on it, and if you want to adjust like a stopping condition, like you say, okay, after 10 points or after 5 points, I want to stop, or after 2 minutes, I want to stop. All of this you can do. Don't put 2 minutes here, it's 2 hours, that will be a little long. And then you can also adjust a lot of things here, like how big should the center of mass be? Do you want a smaller circle there, which I will put in here right now, or a bigger one? Do you just want to play in the inner ring, or do you want to have the middle ring, which would automatically come if you choose a harder level? So you always have easy, intermediate, difficult, or user defined. As soon as you make adjustments in here, it becomes a user defined setting. So now I go back to the exercise. Usually you would just start with easy and see how your client performs on that, and then go to intermediate and later to difficult. Now the mission here is to have that red button, and when I stand on the platform, which I usually should do before the session starts, now I stand in the center, and now I shift forward and to the left into that sector, and then I go back, and then I go forward, and I go back, and so forth. So I shift my posture and try to hit those sectors. That's the key mission that I need to accomplish. And now I did my 10 points, and it automatically ends because that was one of the conditions under which I told the system to stop. If I hadn't managed to reach my 10 points within 2 minutes, it would have stopped due to the 2 minutes. So that's the basic first feature that we have. If I want it more difficult, I can just go to difficult and restart it. And now you'll find that I need to lean forward more. Now there may be some easy ones, but the center of mass is very small. I need to lean forward all the way and so forth. And it's a lot harder to hit the center of origin, center of mass perfectly here. And it's always collecting points, as you can see. And it also indicates the time on the upper right hand side. So it's always a point over time ratio that you're getting. And that you can compare in the analysis module then to see how well did I perform. So if I go to analysis now and I go to training measurements, I have my exercises in here now, the 2 that we did. And now I click on it and I see that my point ratio score, I did 10 points. I took 31 seconds for that measure. And so my point over time ratio is 0.02. And I can do the same for the other exercise that I did before to see how well I performed there. And here you can see my point time ratio is 0.3. So it's slightly worse in comparison. So there was a slight improvement between the first and the second measurement that I did. So let's see if I can show them both at the same time. Give me a second. Double tap on this. And now I can put them both next to each other and show that, oh look, on the first measurement you did a 0.3 and now you did a 0.32, which is already much better. And what I want to accomplish is that this goes up in due course for the client. So that's the first training measurement and an example of how you can analyze it. And now we go back to the actual training mode and go through the different games that we have available. So the next one is hit a circle, which is quite similar to this one. And now this is the easy one. You see the circles are huge. And so I can even do this by hand actually. And then I go back into here, go back into the center. So basically anybody can do that. Or I can change it from easy to intermediate. And I will see the circles are smaller. They're further away. So I need to work harder on being precise here. And if I make it very difficult, so you can see this is very fast to change. Now my circle is very, very small, and hitting that is actually quite challenging, but doable. So that is basically how you can do that. It's a very straightforward training process. If I find that I need to adjust this more, I can do so on here. All the parameters are available, and I can always set a condition when the training session for this particular game is over. Exercise number 3. That's the first dynamic function. Here, the mission for the client is to move the red dot into the circle and stay in the circle. I'm actually doing this by hand right now, still sitting in my chair, just giving you an idea of how it works. And if I collect my 10 points and I'm not in the easy level, this blue circle would now go to the next outer ring, which I will show you how that works. So I'll go from easy to intermediate. For that one, I'll probably have to stand on the platform because else I will not succeed to stay inside the blue dot. So what you do is you try to follow it, which is already very challenging. And now it's even apparently faster, and now you do the same thing over in the outer module, and you can see that, particularly if you're talking while you're doing it, is a challenge in itself. So it's a lot harder to catch the points here and to even get more than 1 point consecutively. Once I've done my 20 points here, it will go back to the initial site and it will be easier. So I'm trying to demonstrate that. 1 more point, and there we go. And now I can relax a little bit again and do the same thing over in here, and so forth. And you can see 20 points in 1 minute, which is not too bad. And we're done with this exercise. Next exercise is catch the ball, which is more graphical. You're represented by the basket on the bottom, and your mission is to catch the balls that the guy is throwing from up top. So right now this is very slow, but there are already patients that find this challenging. If you catch the ball, it will give you a point. If you don't catch it, it will not. And there can be an acoustic feedback for that. If you set it, I think I turn it off here, and you have again a number of parameters that you can adjust, like the difficulty level, the sound that you can turn on, the speed of the ball, which could be extensive. You can also just go for difficulty level to do that automatically, and you can also widen or make the game less wide by changing it here. So I'll do this for the left and for the right a little bit. So it's more narrow now, and I'll go start. And now you see he's much faster, but the field isn't quite as wide, so I don't have to move as far if I don't have the ability to do that, and so forth. So that's how that works. Next one is tennis, which is the good old pong. You're represented by the racket on the left-hand side, which goes forward and backward. And on the other side, the blue one is the computer, the KI. And he's playing against you. Now this is all slow motion, and your mission is to move the racket to a point where the ball can't pass you. Oops. And now I didn't do it properly, but the ball actually flew past me, so it's 1-0 for the computer. Let me try this again. You can also use the handle of the racket. It will still work. And now you have to anticipate, okay, what's the curve that ball has taken to make sure that you're actually there to hit it. And now if you manage to hit it to the other side of the field, there's a higher probability for you to actually score against the computer. Now this is all very slow motion, so let me make this a lot harder, even though I'm behind, and I'm choosing difficulty level. I can turn on sound again. Now speed and adversary speed is quite high. I'm making the computer slower now to have a better chance. And now we'll see how that works. So the ball is fast. And now let's see if I get my point. I did. And I did it again. And he did it. So that guy is good. And now let's see if I can manage. Now, since I made him slow, I'm ahead by 2. But now he's also quite skilled. And it's actually a challenging game here. So that's how it goes. And before I fall behind, I'll try to score one more or I'll stop it. So what the patient forgets about, the people that train with it, is, oh, they could fall, but they are so focused on the game that they come back to automating their routine of balance and shifting posture. Now the next one, we weren't sure how it would appeal to people. We find it that particularly older people do like it quite much. It's called Save the Princess. You're represented by a red knight. I'll make the faster version here. And you're supposed to protect the poor princess from the red knights that appear by pushing them away before they reach the fair lady. And if you fail to do that, they will eventually make her look less happy. So let's see. I'll block the ones from the right, but I'm allowing the others to reach her. So now she's a little shocked because the first guy got to her. And not all of them actually reach her, so I can defend it some here. Now she's very, very unhappy, and now the game will end. So when they reach her 3 times, the game is over. Now this was the difficult mode. Of course, in easy, it's much less challenging. Next one is car race. You're the red car and you're supposed to stay on the road and you need to lean forward in order to drive. Now on this broad street, there's no challenge in it for people like you and us, but you can also go to intermediate or difficult just so that you get an idea of how broad the scope is. This could also be the scope. And if you don't drive on the street but on the grass, it will go very, very slow. So the actual challenge is to not hit the grass, drive on the street. Let's see if I can make it. And the better you actually manage to drive through here without hitting the grass, points you collect. Now this is already expert level, but as you can see, it's a doable process, just to give you an idea. Okay, I'm going to stop now. You're collecting a lot of points in short time here, and we stop. So here we take away people's reluctancy to lean forward and to actually shift left and right while doing so. The next one, skiing, is just the same, just a different type of environment. So now you have a ski environment, and only if you lean forward, it will actually move. You see like some little huts or trees on the side. And as you can see, again, this is easy level. We can change it to intermediate for a change. That's not quite as hard. And of course, there's user defined. Now this is again doable, but more of a challenge than the easy level. So you do have to shift your posture in order to complete the track, but not quite as badly as you needed to do that in the expert level. So it's quite doable with some effort. Okay, the next exercise is pipe cleaning, which is either a plus or an X type of setup, which you will see in a second. So your client is represented by this guy, and his mission is to collect all the dirt or all the things that should not be down here without hitting the wall, because if he hits the wall, he gets bruises, and it's not what he wants. So the system actually analyzes. Oh, you could hear it here. If I go into the wall, there will be a warning because that's not what you want. You don't want to get the little guy injured. And his mission is to collect all the items that he finds in the sewage here. So that's where he is. And we don't just have this as a front, back, left, right scenario, which is still fairly easy. But the next difficulty level is to do this as an X, as a cross. So now I don't just go forward, backward, but I have to go forward and right, backward and left, and to collect the items at hand. Now this is the easy level. If I make this harder, just to show you how far this goes, I'm now much smaller, the area is much bigger, and there's so much dirt that within seconds it's over polluted if I don't do anything about it. And if I stop working, it will give me a warning, and then the game is over because excessive pollution. Okay, next exercise is a similar setup, but on the traffic control. Now you're a police officer doing traffic control, and you're supposed to hit the little cars and tell them, okay, you go now. So when you hit the car, it will drive, and your mission is to make sure they don't crash. There actually is an application in here that you could let the cars crash, and then you don't get points for it. And he has to stay on the street. He's not allowed to go on the sidewalk. He's not allowed to take a rest. And the system will again analyze how much time you spend here or there. And now there's excessive traffic already. So this guy's not doing a good job right now. Could be a lot faster. You have a lot of setups. You have your traffic noise background in here. And you can do the same thing again as across. So same kind of scenario. Now it's not just front, back, left, right, but it's a combination thereof as it was before in the sewage. Okay, the next two are 3D games that we've created.
Now let's take a closer look at the next 3D games that we have available with different difficulty levels. And let's just click on Start to launch the Collect the Sweets application. There are two different games here. This is the first one. It's a running game. You lean forward and try to collect the little chocolate bits that are on the course. You can either lean forward, left, or right. You try to avoid the obstacles, and you also try not to fall off the cliff. If you miss the chocolate lances, you will not collect a corresponding point. You can actually adjust a lot of parameters, which is the speed at which you move and the speed at which you turn. If you fall off the cliff, there is no problem, you always return, and there actually are 12 different difficulty levels, simple, intermediate, and difficult. Now we'll stop this version and take a quick look at the other application, which is again Collect the Sweets, but it's a thinking game, so you have to think a lot on the course. It's a cognitive skill that is required. You can actually move this marshmallow based on shifting your posture, so you're more or less a human joystick. And again, the mission is to collect the little chocolate pieces that are on the course. However, there are other skills involved. You, for example, need to find those white buttons in the ground. If you click them, things will happen, such as a new chocolate lens appearing or a new path opening. There are a lot of different aspects here. This is an easy level. On the more complex levels, there are more challenges to be made, different levels of courses, thinner roads, ice-coated underground, and much, much more. So it's actually a lot of fun to play these games and to basically act like a human joystick on the platform by simply controlling the movements of the marshmallow by shifting your own weight and posture. It's important that the client stands straight in the routine and doesn't do this by controlling their hip. So that's basically the scope we have here. We'll terminate the game and take a look at the last 3D game we have to offer.
It's a very cool functionality, but it's a third-party game that we sell as an option for the product. Okay, let me just briefly show you how it works. This is actually the toughest form of training that we have, and of course it's available in English as well. So once that is set, it will always remember. And now I'm going to choose my flying object. So you have a choice of aircraft, animals, and fantasy figures that you can choose from. And I'm actually going for an aircraft. You have a ton of different flying objects. And let me choose this one. So select it, fly with it, and now I need to stand on the platform before it actually starts, because else it will be quite challenging. There you go, start game, and now I'm actually controlling this aircraft, and once it's in the air, it's mine. And you see the red guidance that indicates if I need to go up, left, forward, whatever. And the aim is to go through those circles. And this is a constant shift in posture. I think it's a very cool application. And if I manage to go right through the circle, I get 100 points. If I'm just off center but through the circle, I get 25 points. And for flying, I get points as well. And you can actually set it, now this was perfect, you can actually set it to a way that initially you only have so many flying objects, and then when people train with it, they get more flying objects available. And yeah, I think this demoed that quite nicely.